Got your headphones on, Trixie? We got a special episode today.
I do. Okay, you got to stop with the special. Seriously.
Today is actually special. Episodes 34 and 35, we talked all about my friend, and now yours, I guess, Chip Porter.
He is my friend.
Yeah. Well, Chip did some amazing things. He went out and wrote a book since that time. So we're going to have him on today, along with his friend Andy.
I guess that does make it a special episode. Okay, so I will give you the special this time.
Yes. And you remember we went to Chip's college. We're going to be doing an Ask a Local in the future for Presbyterian College in Clinton, South Carolina. You were there.
I do. Of course I remember. Oh my, it was such a great afternoon spent with Chip and everyone at Presbyterian. So today's going to be fun because we're going to talk about his experiences at Presbyterian, going to college there. But yeah, I mean, and his book. Weren't you raised Presbyterian?
I was not. I was raised Methodist. But you're Catholic.
I am.
You were raised Catholic?
I don't know. Am I? I'm not sure. What? Yes. Okay.
Hundreds of years at a Catholic school. Catechisms, all that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was me.
Okay. This has nothing to do with Presbyterian College.
So let's get started.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to blow up your comfort zone at the tender age of 50? Well, we did just that. When our last kid went off to college, we hit the road in search of a new hometown. Now we bounce from city to city and bring you along for the ride. This is the Skip Town All-Stars podcast.
What's going on, guys? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. It's summertime and you are still rocking a neck sweater. Your lady friend would like to snuggle up with you, but you are looking and smelling like a sweaty Yeti. Why don't you head on over to manscaped.com, use the code SKIPTOWN and get 20% off plus free shipping on all of their popular kits. Like the Beard Hedger Pro Kit that will have you sporting that chiseled jawline you've always wanted, or the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra with Manscaped's signature Lawnmower 5.0. It shreds body hair like a champ while leaving a baby smooth finish in all of your nooks and crannies. Tuck it all in with the jewel pouch on their Boxers 2.0 and you'll be swaggering around town with big slick energy. See what I did there? Head on over to manscaped.com to get 20% off plus free shipping on all of your favorite items. Do it today, don't wait. It's summertime and the living's easy. Boom. What's up, All-Stars? Welcome back to another edition of Skip Town All-Stars. How you doing, Miss Catholic Trixie? Can't even talk.
I'm doing great. I am looking forward to this episode. It should be a real fun one.
It should be. And we have producer Phil in the booth for us, as always, today.
What's up, guys? We're back in the older studio today.
We are in the older studio. Yeah. So, Phil, you're somewhat of a sports fan. You excited to hear about a little college football today?
Absolutely. I never played college football because I never had the skills, but I've gone to a couple of college football games, and it is insane.
It is insane. It's always hype.
Yep.
No matter how big or small the school. In this case, Presbyterian College is a rather small school. But even recently, the girls' basketball team made it into the NCAA tournament. So, big things popping off there in Clinton, South Carolina.
You know what I find at these smaller schools? They're maniac sport fans.
They are.
They are maniac sports fans. Like, the school is small, but they're like crazy diehard because it is the thing for the college.
It is, for sure. And the alumni stay involved
Absolutely.
throughout their entire lives.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be fun. Today we are with Chip Porter and Andy Forrest. Chip is the author of the book, The Southern Massacre, 13 Weeks to Remember. I'm holding it up right now for those of you listening to us on the audio cast. It's the story of the 1979 Presbyterian College Blue Hose football team. Do you know what the Blue Hose are?
What a name.
I know.
So much conjures up. Explain.
We're going to have Chip explain it to us. Let's welcome them both to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Chip Porter and Andy Forrest. How are you guys?
Good morning. Good morning.
Where are you guys coming from today?
I am at Andy's house in Greenville, South Carolina. Andy and I have a tradition that on the weekend of the Masters, we always get together.
Nice.
So I got up here Friday night and we are chatting with you this afternoon and looking forward to watching 4 hours of the Masters this afternoon.
That's right. Okay. It's the perfect weekend, actually. You remind me, Chip, and this goes back to Presbyterian College. You were actually on the golf team there, correct?
That is correct. I was a student athlete at Presbyterian. I transferred in my sophomore year in 1979. And seriously, I was in love and am still married to the same woman. But I went through school in 2.5 years at Presbyterian. So I graduated in 3.5 years.
And so, Andy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because you were on a team there as well, and we'd love to hear your background.
Well, Chip and I met at PC. You're going to have to say PC because Presbyterian is just too long a word.
Thank you for allowing us to do that.
And I'll tell you about Blue Hose if you want to hear that.
Absolutely.
Clinton is a town of about 3,000 people. It's about 45 miles south of here, between Greenville and Columbia. And we had a ball in a little town in South Carolina.
That's awesome. And you played for which team? The football team?
Yes.
Okay. What position did you play?
I was an undersized offensive guard.
Okay. I can relate because I went to a farm league school in high school. I was one of the smallest linemen in all of Ohio.
Well, before we even get started on this, I need him to explain, or someone to explain to the audience, what the heck a blue hoe is.
I know a couple of those.
I believe she called it a blue hoe.
Did she mean that did she do it on purpose?
Okay, so perhaps we do need a little more clarity.
Because that's what it sounded like.
Positive it's not that.
Okay, well, I'm not a PC historian, but what I understand is, of course, Presbyterians are proud of their Scottish heritage, and PC had always been the Fighting Scots, and the mascot was a Scotsman wearing his kilt and carrying his sword, and he had on blue socks, and of course the colors at PC are blue and white. And the story is in the 50s that I think PC was at Appalachian State for a game.
Okay.
And the team ran out on the field wearing their blue socks, and the PA announcer forgot the mascot, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, here are the PC blue stockings."
Okay.
And that just morphed into Blue Hose, and since it is unique, we've all clung to it. So we're true blue.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I really do wish, I mean, it seems like it was so easy to just change the mascot for an entire school, just like that. Like, I went to Youngstown State University, and our mascot strikes fear into the hearts of everyone. Maybe you've heard of it. It's a penguin. If it were that easy to change the mascot, I would have actually rallied for that years ago when I was attending college. So anyway, speaking of years ago, let's talk about when you guys were at school together and this rivalry between yourselves and another school, and just set the backdrop for me of the era, the times, everything that was going on at PC in the lead up to this season.
In 1979, and this is the year that I wrote about, we had come off of two pretty successful football seasons in 1977 and 1978. Presbyterian is a school of 900 students, approximately. We had approximately 500 women and 400 men. 100 of the men played football, so 25% of the school was on the football team. In addition, we had basketball players, we had golfers, tennis players, soccer. So the school was very, very involved with extracurricular activities.
Mm-hmm.
With 900 students, we played in what is called the SAC-8 conference, and they were, again, smaller schools. But to start the season out, James, we played two pretty good-sized schools here in South Carolina.
Okay.
One is the Citadel.
Wow.
At the time, there were 2,000 cadets down there, and it's 1979. So basically 2,000 male cadets at the Citadel. So we went down the first game and we beat them. And so the next game, we went to Furman, played away. And again, Furman's about, what I would
3,000.
say, yeah, 3 times the size, 2,700, 3,000.
Wow.
3,000 students. And we went up to Furman in Greenville and beat them. So all of a sudden we were 2-0. We had beaten 2 Southern Conference teams.
Division One. Mm-hmm.
They were Division One. We played in what is called the NAIA.
Oh, okay.
And, so it was very, very significant in the state of South Carolina. The other team that played Division One was the University of South Carolina, the Gamecocks, and they had a guy over there named George Rogers, who the next year won the Heisman Trophy. So obviously we didn't play South Carolina, but we had already beaten 2 Southern Conference teams, and the media and the state just was going crazy. And so hence the name of the book, The Southern Massacre.
The Southern Massacre. Okay. So the Southern Massacre is the rivalry game. Is that the name of the rivalry game? And tell me remind me who the rival is.
Okay. So the Southern Massacre refers to beating 2 Southern Conference Division One teams.
Got it. Okay.
So we went into the year and we're playing our SAC 8 opponents, and we ran the board on the SAC 8 opponents.
Yep.
Got it.
Now, we did lose to Wofford.
Wofford.
And they are in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Okay.
They are also an NAIA team, but fortunately, they weren't in our division. They were an independent NAIA team.
Got it.
So we went through the season and went to the rivalry game, and we were 9-1,
8-1. 9-1.
We ended up 11-2.
Okay, 9-1.
Yeah, so we were 9-1 going into the rivalry game, and the rivalry game is Newberry College.
Newberry.
Similar size to PC. Very 20 miles away.
Yep, they're 20 miles away, and the game was referred to as the Bronze Derby.
Right.
The game was played on Thanksgiving Day. The game was the game in South Carolina.
It was the game.
On that day, nobody else played football.
Nobody else played football.
Thanksgiving Day.
Why is it called the Bronze Derby?
Great question, Denise. In 1947, there was a basketball game in Newberry, South Carolina. And there was a derby hat that was worn by one of the Presbyterian College students. And the derby hat got stolen. Let's put it this way. Got removed from his head and disappeared during and after the game. There was a skirmish between the schools.
Okay.
For the hat? They were fighting for the hat?
For one hat.
Was it like on a baseball mound, kind of like where everyone comes together and just hits each other? Was it that kind of fight?
Yes.
It was fisticuffs.
Over a hat.
I think in the
God.
40s they called it fisticuffs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to be a little bit more reasonable, but yes, there was verbal altercations and physical altercations.
Okay.
There's no love lost between PC and Newberry.
Oh,
Okay.
no love lost. Okay, good to hear. So did PC get that hat back?
Well, what happened was the Presbyterian went back to school without the hat.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
And administrators got together that week and said, "Hey, we got a problem. We don't need
Have a raid.
Yeah, we don't need the teams to get together and be be aggravated over this hat." And so it was decided, and it was found. It was decided that we need to get the hat back,
Okay.
And Newberry College went and bronzed the hat. And the
Oh,
hat represented athletic competitions from that point on.
okay.
Who
So
has the
every
hat?
time,
Who kept the hat? Did Newberry keep it, or did they give you the bronze hat back?
well, what happened, Denise, was they bronzed the hat, determined that the hat would be a trophy for the athletic
Ah,
competitions from that point on.
they threw down
Nice.
the gauntlet.
They did. So
So
this
what
was
they did was the Bronze Derby changed hands during basketball season, baseball season, and football season.
That's a lot of changing of hands depending on who's
That's
winning
exactly
and losing.
correct. It was 1956 when it was determined, hey, let's just play it for the football game.
Yeah, we're getting tired of carrying this hat around.
and
Right.
it's only between those two schools that the Bronze
That's
Derby is used. Okay, got it.
That-
That's
that
a
is
great
correct.
tradition. Oh, that is a great rivalry tradition.
So for 60 years, they played football for the Bronze Derby until 2006. And unfortunately, NCAA came calling with Presbyterian College, and PC decided to go to Division I, and therefore, because of NCAA rules and the need to have Saturdays and pretty much all days available for playoff situations,
Right.
the Derby ended.
Aw.
Now what
So
are we going to
since-
do on Thanksgiving?
Oh, so
That is correct.
who presently where does the Brown Derby presently
The
reside?
Derby
Bronze
is
Derby.
Sorry, what did I say?
The
What
Brown Derby's a steakhouse
I know.
in Ohio.
the
the
bronze.
Derby currently will forever reside in its proper home.
Oh, PC.
Yes.
That is correct.
Spoken like
What
a
happened-
true PC
this-
alum. I love it, Andy.
What happened, and this is a great story, is that in 2006, Newberry had their best football team ever in their history.
Okay.
And they were undefeated and came to PC. PC at the time was 6-4.
Oh,
Newberry had the best offense in the conference, and Presbyterian had the best defense.
Oh,
And at the end of the game, the Bronze Derby went to PC with a 10-0 win.
the unstoppable force hit the immovable object.
That is true.
I like it.
Well, it's just karma, James.
It was forever destined to be in a trophy case at PC, right?
The Derby is where it belongs, and all's right with the world.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so with that backdrop, let's talk not real quick. Let's talk in depth about Chip and your desire to begin the journey of writing a book. You'd never written before, if I'm correct. What inspired you to start?
You know, James, when I think back, and I think you can relate, but if you remember when we were in elementary school, the teacher in our younger days gave us a grid.
Mm-hmm.
And there were questions, and the questions were, what do you want to be when you grow up? And most of us put a doctor, a lawyer, fireman, a policeman.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Ryder was on there, but no, I never, ever thought that I would do this.
Okay.
So what happened was about 2.5, 3 years ago, I was on eBay and I punched in Presbyterian College. And I was scrolling down at the things in Presbyterian College, and all of a sudden I saw football.
Uh-huh.
So I clicked on the auction and I pulled it up and I looked at it, and it was the 1979 Bronze Derby football signed with SAC 8 champions, NAIA #1, on the football.
Painted on the football. It was a game ball.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was the game ball from the season that Andy played in.
Okay.
I was there. I was a student. I was a sophomore at PC when this happened.
All right.
I hit by it now so fast it was unbelievable. I had to have that football. But one thing I was looking at was this is history, and this football belongs in the right place. I didn't want it to end up with a football autograph collector on the West Coast, and nobody would ever see that football again.
Well, did you get any history about the person that sold it? And I want to ask Chip, how much was that buy now?
Yeah. What was the price tag?
Can you even disclose, or will your wife kill you?
No, she won't. She won't kill me. Okay, first of all, on the background of it, I did contact the gentleman that I bought it from, and I said, "Where did you find this?" And he told me he found it in Sumter, South Carolina. And he told me he goes from yard sale to yard sale on weekends.
I was going to say, it's in a garage sale.
It was sitting on a table, and he bought it, and he told me for $20.
Wow.
And I paid him $200 for it.
Wow. Okay.
We said the same
We
thing.
We did. I didn't look. I'm not surprised at that number. I think that's like, for a piece of history, $200 isn't an obscene amount. Him getting it for $20 obviously was a steal, but he had no history to Presbyterian, so that was. I mean, he just got lucky when you came along. Honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, what are the chances that an actual PC grad who was there during that time
was on eBay
at that moment to see that item for sale? That's pretty serendipitous, right?
It was meant to be.
Yes.
Well, in the end, Denise, to follow up on your question, that $200 meant more to me now than anything I've ever done. And the reason being is I came back, and actually I called Andy first. I've got two brothers, and then I've got Andy. So I called Andy, and I said, I got this football, and I sent him a picture of it, and he says, "Oh my gosh, Chip." He says, "That's the Bronze Derby ball." He says, "Call Coach Perry." Well, Coach Perry was the offensive line coach, and he was my golf coach.
Wow.
And
okay.
I called Coach Perry, and I said, "Coach," I said, "look at that football I just sent you a picture of." He says, "Oh my gosh, Chip." He says, "That's got to be the most famous football in Presbyterian College history." He says, "Where is that?" I said, "It's sitting in my lap."
I'm polishing it as we speak.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you could have started a little bidding war at Presbyterian College. You know
Probably
that,
could
right?
have.
Like, that would have been my angle, Chip. I would have already started with the alumni. That would have been my angle 100%.
We're getting a new gymnasium at the auction with this football.
So I asked him, I said, "How in the world did it get in the marketplace?" And he says, "We had the display cases, and somebody could have opened up and showed somebody and forgot that that they didn't lock it up." And he says, "Somebody probably just picked it up, and bingo, it's gone." So I did some research on the team, and then I called Andy, and I said, "Hey, now, I had just retired. I said, I'm going to write a book about your football team." And Andy said,
"You are?" Really? Yeah. Where's Chip?
That's great.
So anyways, Andy said, Well, you
brought the ball. You on one of your visits to come see me, you brought the ball.
Yeah, I brought the ball up, and Andy looked at it, and he says, "Hold on a second."
Yeah, I need to go to the attic.
Yeah.
And so he went upstairs, and he came down, and he had a brown box. And bless her heart, but his mother cut out every newspaper article about the 79 football team.
Oh my gosh, that's so
And she
awesome.
had-
Sweet.
That's like
she
some
had all
Americana
of-
right there.
It is.
Oh, it's great, and he had all of the programs with the exception of a couple of the away games.
Uh-huh.
And it was just sitting there right in front of me.
And then we got the big surprise.
Oh, what was that?
I said, I reached in the box. I said, Chip, you ever seen a football game plan? And he said, no. So I had actually kept the mimeograph copies of our game plans
Oh no
for
way.
that year.
Crazy.
And
That's
with
awesome.
with all of our plays and notes that the coaches had made after watching film about the opposing team, and you'd never seen anything like that.
I had never seen anything. And one of the responses that I get from football purists is that they love looking at those game plans. These are handwritten ones.
Yeah.
Today they're on
Wow.
computers.
Wow.
So these things are all handwritten. And when we got to getting to print the book, I saw one of the first versions of the book, and I called Andy and I said, Andy, I said, those game plans are great. I said, but they're so light.
I said, Chip, they were made on a mimeograph machine
Yeah.
in 1979.
Can you hold up the book
There's
at
one
all?
guy with a
know.
crank just
It's
cranking
true.
out these game
Hold up
plans.
the book so maybe
I'm
I
going to
can-
hold it up. We're going to put a scan up
Maybe
though,
you
but
see
I'm
it
looking
like
at
right
one of
here.
the pages right now. So just to give Denise and everybody a
Hold it like this
oh,
to the
sorry.
camera. To the
Okay,
camera.
sorry.
To
I'm gonna
your
zoom in
camera.
on you. Hold on.
To your
Don't move
camera.
it. Don't
All
move
right.
it.
There we go. Look at that.
That's incredible.
That's right.
So
that's the
We would
6-2.
get things
That's the
on-
6-2 goal line play right there. Always
Yep.
successful.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
We would
what,
get
that's what
those on Sunday
I believe
night.
that's what Refrigerator Perry ran in the 1985 Super Bowl.
Oh, everything comes back to the Chicago Bears.
But anyway, no, it's really fantastic. And okay, so that box of clippings and the football plays and the covers of the programs are obviously, like they just filter throughout the entire book, which is fantastic from a reader's standpoint because it really does. Like, as far as nostalgia goes,
It's very visual.
your mother did you both, Andy, a very solid favor by just hanging on to this stuff all these years. I mean, clearly she was some sort of super fan. I imagine she probably had one of those blue afros in the stands and face paint and all that. But whatever the case, I mean, it's really endearing. I mean, it's like you cannot have played football in the 60s, 70s, 80s and see this stuff and not get nostalgic for your own childhood. You know, it really does take you back.
So that
Well,
book was just waiting to be written. It literally was calling to you when Andy brought this box for you.
That's right.
Well, I could tell that it moved Chip, and I said, "Look, just take that box home with you," and that was the fuel that made the fire for this book.
Okay.
Oh,
got it.
absolutely. Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah.
seeing all those clippings and everything. Oh my gosh, that had to be so what's the word? Like not inspiring for
Yeah.
sure, but like also give him the momentum. I would think it gave you the momentum. Like you have to do this now. Like it's waiting to be made.
I think it started him, and so that
Inspired,
he would
yeah.
know what kind of research he needed to do.
Right.
And so he talked to the coaches and he talked to the players, and you know, he'll tell you he talked to the sports writers and looked at the annuals from the colleges and just on, and then a bunch of guys my age who maybe stretched the truth just a little.
Of course they
Well, I
did.
mean, you got to tee it up for the Hollywood remake. Are you kidding? So, Andy, so before we get into Chip's process and sort of the research and all that, Andy, you were there. You were on the team during all this time. Can you talk about the sort of the lead up to the game? At what point in the season did you guys feel like we have something really special going on here? I mean, I know you played these two early games against you were the David against these two Goliath opponents. What was like at what point in the season did you say to yourself, this team is going to be a memorable team in relation to all the other PC teams that had come before you?
Yeah. Well, to give you a little background, our coaches all played football at PC.
Wow.
So we had walking encyclopedias that were with us, but PC had never beaten Furman and Citadel back to back. So we knew, I mean, that was a special thing, and we all knew we had some really gifted athletes,
right,
in that season. But I don't think we sat around, thinking about, hey, we got a chance to do something special here. It was just very workmanlike. And especially me being an offensive lineman, it was just on to the next game. What's the play scheme? What's the blocking scheme? And I think the first time it really dawned on us was probably in week 4 or 5 was the first time we were ever ranked in the top 10.
Wow. Okay.
And then we went on to be ranked number 1. When we played Newberry, we were ranked number 1 in the nation. And back then, NAIA was very similar to Division II now.
Yeah.
So, so when we got ranked, then we're thinking, wow. Then we started thinking about the playoffs. And for a school our size to make the playoffs, we really had to go undefeated in the we had to win the conference and go undefeated. And that was why. We wanted, and Newberry was our final game, so we had to beat Newberry in the Bronze Derby.
Yeah,
and we actually had to come from behind to win that game on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, is that right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a little bit of drama there. They gave you a little bit of. It's always amazing in the rivalry games, even if a program in a given year is not doing that well, they always play above their pay grade, right? When it's against the rival.
Our quarterback was hurt, and we were beaten. We had the ball, and we had a 4th and short, and we ran a play and didn't make it.
Oh,
and that would have been the end of the game, but Newberry committed a personal foul, and so we got a first down and drove the ball down and kicked the field goal to win. So,
oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I remember it today.
Oh, they were foaming at the mouth. They wanted to be your spoiler that year. They didn't want good things for you, and you guys managed to squeak it out. That's awesome. So then,
I'm not going to say what I want to say.
So after that game, then tell me what happened, because inevitably, then you won the conference. You went on to the playoffs.
Well, what happened was we hosted the quarterfinal game in Clinton, South Carolina.
Okay.
And a team from Saginaw Valley, Michigan came down.
Okay.
And
school of 12,000 people.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was
big. We had 1,000. They had 12,000.
Big program.
Was a pretty large school.
Yeah.
And they came down, and our quarterback, who had been hurt in the Newberry game, started the game, and we were losing 6-0, and Jimmy got hurt again.
Okay, Jimmy's a quarterback. He got hurt for a second time?
Jimmy Spence.
Okay.
The final score of the game was 36-0. I'm sorry, 36-6. Paul Scott, backup quarterback, came in and led the team to 36 unanswered points.
What, this kid off the bench?
You got it.
Like Tom Brady. After Drew Bledsoe went down. I'm so full of football stuff right now.
He's in heaven right now.
I am. I'm totally in heaven.
The image, I'll tell you. So this game is in the 1st of December, and it was cold. It was really cold.
Oh, yeah?
And our stadium, we had a small stadium that probably sat, how many people, Chip? 4,000.
Yeah.
And it was, every seat was taken, plus some seats they brought in, and standing room only. It was probably 7,000, 8,000 people at the game. Clinton is a town that had 3,000 population.
Uh-huh.
And and the game was really over at halftime. I think we were ahead 3 touchdowns at the half.
Wow.
And it was really special because that was a true nationwide kind of. There were 4 games in the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
So
what was significant about the game? Paul came in, and Paul went 14 for 15 for approximately 170 yards.
Wow.
And a
That's
couple
good.
touchdowns.
Okay.
And obviously he was the player of the game, but it was a story within the story,
Right.
to have the backup quarterback come in and win a quarterfinal game. The coach of Saginaw Valley, his name was Muddy Waters.
Oh,
Really?
really?
Muddy Waters went on to Michigan State and was the head coach at Michigan State. So the Presbyterian Saginaw Valley game was Muddy Waters' last game.
At Saginaw.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a quick question. What happened to your backup quarterback? Did he go pro? Was it a one-off game? Like, what happened to him?
it was. He would tell you that it was a miracle.
Is that right?
That's what he was. Yeah.
Super guy, and
wonderful man.
Wonderful man. And in actuality, Paul, Jimmy Spence came back the next year, and so he was the quarterback in 1980, and Paul in 81 was the quarterback, and they had a campaign, and this was after I left, but on the front page of the PC newspaper, they had a thing. And they called it Paul for Heisman.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yep, that's true.
So we had some fun with it.
That's great. Okay, so these are a lot of details that you already know, and Andy has set the backdrop for us of what it was like being on the team. Well, actually, before we jump ahead, how did it end? So they went on to play the following week, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
The NAIA made a decision to have the number 1 rated team go on the road. And they went to Edmond, Oklahoma and play Central State, Oklahoma. Huge school.
So wait,
Now,
you're the
Central
number 1
State-
ranked team, and you have to be the away team?
Yes.
Oh, that's treacherous.
Yes, it was. In addition, there were 74 players on the team, and in the NAIA playoffs, the teams could only carry 50 players.
Oh, wow.
So 24 players couldn't even dress.
Aw.
Oh,
So that was a little rough decision. 12, 14 players knew they weren't going to dress, but then there were about 10 players that, it was a pretty tough decision to hear, but once they heard it, they got on the practice field and worked their butts off to make sure that the Saginaw Valley game would become a success, and hopefully the Oklahoma game would become a success.
right.
So we went out to Oklahoma, and that team was basically what it's called. It's a feeder school, and what that means is that teams like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, those guys that wanted to play football and were 3rd and 4th string on those teams moved to Central State, Oklahoma, so they could play football. So there were some large human beings on that, on that team.
They're made for football. They go there to do football.
Exactly.
Their fullback held the national record in the 220-yard high hurdles.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. So he was
And he
fast.
hurdled a few of us.
I bet. Oh, my gosh. That's crazy. So basically you were up against a juggernaut again. Is that where the glorious season came to a stop?
Yeah, we lost that game.
It came to a stop. The one PC did go into Oklahoma, and no one had ever scored on their field. And in the second half, we did score a touchdown.
Okay.
Wow.
Moral victory.
That's no
Yeah,
one ever
moral
scored on their field.
I
That
know,
is
it's a moral
incredible.
victory.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And Chip found out something that I never knew, and that was we had a lot of students from Georgia and the Atlanta area. Well, Chip's from Atlanta. Had a lot of folks from Atlanta, and Atlanta's where the Southern Presbytery is. So it was a big relationship, and I believe that Chip found out that if we had won the Oklahoma game, we would be back home in the semifinal, and they had already told us that WIS-TV in Atlanta would televise the game.
Oh, nice.
If we had won. So
got it.
amazing to know. Did I do that right?
It was pretty close, but yeah, there was a chance that Presbyterian would be on regional television, but the NAIA decided it would be an unfair recruiting advantage.
Oh, really?
That's
crazy.
Okay.
Yep.
So what they say goes.
Naturally, it's always amazing how the NCAA and all these other organizations that oversee collegiate sports just get their fingers into everything.
Right.
Not for the betterment of the sport or the student athletes always. So, but enough of that soapboxing. So let's get back to the book itself. So, Chip, when in your research, other than finding this box in Andy's attic, when did you know you were onto something in terms of this is beyond sort of a hobby or a project? I'm actually going to create a book out of this story.
So, James, what I did was I brought the box back and I went and actually got scrapbook these big pages, and I started laying out the season. And it was a big scrapbook. In the end, overall, and I'll tell you some specifics, but I put I'm gonna say I got 600 hours in the book.
Wow.
Okay. Of course, I learned how to do a lot of research with online newspaper sources. I did run into a couple little problems, and that is these newspapers that were small in 1979 have been taken over by conglomerates.
Right.
And the conglomerates, I wanted to use, their newspaper articles to tell the story. This is 45 years ago. I wasn't there. I can't tell the story of what happened on 2nd and 3 in the second quarter of a game.
Right.
But the newspaper writers were right there. And I wanted to tell the story by someone picking up the book and reading the articles.
Right.
So I had a little problem there. The articles that I wanted to use, exceeded my gross sales of the book. So
yeah, of course.
It wasn't a good economical decision.
Right.
But I had tremendous support from the Presbyterian College community.
Okay.
Of course, I got to use their archives. And then I had tremendous support from the local newspapers. And they said, Chip, right away, use every article that's available on that team. So it ended up wonderful that I could use the what is called the Blue Stocking from Presbyterian and the Lawrence County Advertiser, and I told the story.
Did you, other than running into the financial cost of getting newspaper clippings from a big conglomerate, did you actually run into any major roadblocks, like a writer's block at any point when you were writing this book, or anything that you just did not foresee that was going to, come along your path on this journey of writing this book?
Well, Denise, great question, because one of the things that when I went to the publisher, and I had a wonderful publisher, as far as I'm concerned, living in Savannah, I had a local publisher that embraced the story, but the publisher said to me, Chip, we know you're going to use a lot of newspaper articles. We know you're going to use a lot of college resources.
Right.
We want to make sure that you have the permission from everybody before we print the book.
Yeah.
Now, in the book, I've got news articles from the Oklahoman, which a lot of the players had never seen. They were just elated when they saw what their local newspaper was saying
right
about the game in Presbyterian College.
Okay.
I even got a article in there from the Atlanta Journal, which is huge.
Yeah.
Actually, the Atlanta Journal was the easiest one to get permission from.
Really? It's a huge publication.
It was a huge publication.
Yeah.
So, they just basically told me, hey, Chip, just cite us. They knew the size of the article. It was a small article, but I think it had something. It was in reference to the backup quarterback winning the quarterfinal game, and that was huge. So to have that in the book, that really meant a lot to me. Is to have those type of things. The Oklahoman, they were just elated that they were going to be included in the book. But again, you got the bigger conglomerates and they got their rules, so I couldn't include those. So yes, that was a hurdle. And then there was another thing, Denise. There was one of the schools, and I just didn't go to the right person. And I didn't beat on them, but every couple of weeks, could I get that permission to use this article? And actually, it was the cover of their program. And I've been talking to legal and I can't, we didn't get that yet. And I said, I just said, is your athletic director there?
Yeah, just go right to the top, right?
So
yes.
I went straight to the athletic director, and he and I had a wonderful 2-minute conversation, and I could hear him typing the email while we were talking. And he says, look on your in your inbox, your permission is granted.
Okay, so really quick, how long did it take? How many weeks had you been working on that permission prior to the 2-minute conversation you had with that athletic director?
4 months.
Oh that's ridiculous. Okay, someone should be fired. Like, let me know. Let me know who that person is at legal. They should be fired.
This is a Chicago in her. She always wants to fight or fire somebody.
They were not doing their job. They were eating a turkey sandwich, going through papers, and they were like, we'll get to him later. No, that's ridiculous. Someone needs to be fired.
It's the future of the world on which that final yes depends. So I'm glad you just called up and got it straight from the horse's mouth. The athletic director seemed more than eager to make it happen.
Yeah. Chip, I want to ask you, how did you find a publisher? What was that like? For the average person like me and James or anyone, how does that work?
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Another outstanding question.
Wait. You just let out the biggest sigh. I just want to note that in the episode. Go ahead, Chip. You can proceed.
But what happened was I've never done this before, so I got on the internet and started reading about it, about, getting a publisher. And then what started getting scary is to see the statistics of people submitting a book to publishers.
Yeah.
And the amount that got rejected.
Right.
Now, I had been through the interview process, renewed friends, have great stories. Bottom line, from the beginning to the end, the 500-600 hours I spent, now I got the hurdle.
Yeah.
So I went to the first one. What I did was, there were a few books written about Presbyterian College by various authors, and I went to see who published their books.
Got it.
So
that was smart.
I did talk to one, and they were very interested, but I need to get this thing printed. And then I looked and I said, okay, I've never done this before. It would be nice if I could find a local publisher.
Right.
And I found one on Tybee Island.
God, it's so
And
crazy.
it's
It's like 20 minutes from you or half hour or
Well,
something. Right?
Right.
everyone explain. We'll explain to everyone. Tybee Island is in Georgia,
Yeah.
Right.
Right outside of Savannah.
and you live right outside of Savannah. So
And you guys have been there.
yes, we actually have. So
yeah.
we're fans of Tybee.
We're
So,
big fans.
Yeah. So you found a local publisher. That's pretty impressive.
So what I did was I talked to the owner. I went straight to the source there.
We're not going through any legal department right here. Secretary eating a turkey sandwich.
He's like Aaron Brockovich right now, just like barreling through people to get this story.
We're too old to mess around. We just got to get this thing done.
Time is a ticking.
Fair comment.
So what he did was he told me, he says, there's a very lovely woman that's going to call you. And she called me the next day and we chatted for a little bit. And she says, I want you to bring what you got and come on over to my house. And so we made arrangements. And the next day I went over there and we sat at her kitchen table and I explained the game and the whole process and what I had.
Mm-hmm.
And she was looking at it and she was making suggestions. I had never written a book. She's written multiple books. So I'm listening to her like, tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
And so she made some suggestions. And all of a sudden she said, ironically, tomorrow, the company's getting together for a meeting. And I'm going to present your book to the company.
Wow.
And we'll give you a call with a decision in the morning. And I said, great. I couldn't sleep.
I'm sure.
I got to tell you this story. Did she make tea and did you guys have cookies and biscuits? Because only in the South does something like this happen where she invites you over.
Right.
Goes through a book with you and says, I'll have an answer for you by tomorrow. Now, if this was in LA and this person lived a mile from me, they would make me drop it in the mail, FedEx, pay for it myself. Then I wouldn't hear from them for 3 months. And by the time I did hear from them, it would be an email. I would never see anybody face to face.
True.
I would never be invited to their house. No one would make me tea and even tell me how to get this started. So this is a story straight up from the South.
Absolutely.
And Denise,
Like neither one of them are surprised. They're like, yeah, what's the problem?
Yeah.
That's the way we do things
What's
here.
the
You have to eat before you can talk business. I mean, it's just,
I love
everybody's
it.
got to eat, right? Listen, I want to tell you something about Chip, and he doesn't know what I'm going to say here, but I think it's important that you know. So I've known Chip since I was 20 years old, and he's a very intelligent guy. And he loves sports. I think he loves sports more than anybody I know, more than me, which is a lot. And he has this ability to compartmentalize things and organize them. And he's always been that way. Little bits of information, you know, his brain is like a computer hard drive.
Okay.
I've got that somewhere, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so it didn't surprise me that he was able to take all these things and put them together. But he's also a very affable guy. And so
True.
he talked to almost every player on the football team over a, you know, he would call me and say, I talked to this guy 3 hours last night. It was great.
Wow.
And so he, I think the most fun for me when Chip was writing the book is he would call me and he would ask me a lot of things and I would tell him what I remembered.
Yeah.
And he would call me and he'd say, do you remember when you told me this story? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, I've gotten that same story 15 times.
Aw.
So then he knew that I just didn't make it up. And,
He is fact checking you.
He was fact checking you.
but he has a way of people are instantly comfortable with him.
True.
And talk to him, you know, you don't have to have your guard up. And so all of those things, the right person wrote this book.
Aw.
That's my opinion. If I had tried to do it, it would have never worked. I don't have that skill set.
That's a very nice compliment you just paid your friend there. And we couldn't agree more. Obviously, we became rather unguarded when we first met Chip.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And became instant friends.
It's very easy. Chip, you are a very easy person to be friends with.
Just a couple more questions. And this one is, I just always wondered this since Chip first told me about starting this book. What is the most surprising, and I want to ask each of you this question, what is the most surprising detail that has emerged for you from this story? Because you were both there at PC at this time.
Chip called me one night and said, these game plans that are in the book, they all had a cover page with a drawing on it. And Chip called me up and he said, hey, you know those drawings on the front of the game plans, do you know who drew them? And I'm like, well, as a matter of fact, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And it was one of our coaches.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Ah, that's a good one. Chip, what about you?
Well, what I learned is the community. I discovered the community spirit with the football team in the 70s and 80s. And I'm going to give you an example. The Bronze Derby game. The Bronze Derby game was played on Thanksgiving Day. Traditionally, it was always sold out. Now, when I'm talking sold out, you're talking about a 4,000 seat stadiums, and they bring in extra bleachers. People are standing there. I've got reports that the governor of the state of South Carolina would sometimes be there. The Columbia, South Carolina newspaper was there. Asheville, Charlotte, all the TV stations. It was the only game in town.
Yeah.
But one thing was always consistent on Thanksgiving Day. The students were home at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So therefore, it was the community that embraced these teams.
Oh, wow.
And the community loved football. So after I wrote this book, I had a call from one of the sports editors. They were so excited that I wrote the book. And they said, Chip, do you like writing a book? I said, sure. Said, you know, in this community, there's a void. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, nobody's ever written about the Bronze Derby.
Ah.
So now I am 80% complete with my second book on the 60 games of the Bronze Derby.
Oh my gosh. So you're doing a book about the compilation of this trophy.
Correct.
Wow.
That is so impressive. You are a legitimate book writer. I mean, now you're on your second book. That is your new title. You have to change it on Facebook.
Author, yeah.
Yes, you are an author. So on Facebook now, when it says occupation, you have to change it to author.
Yeah, you're definitely not retired anymore.
No,
so you're going to have to take that out of your moniker.
You know, you may have heard people say that in the South, football is a religion.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And so I'm going to prove it to you. So Clinton had 3,000 people population. Newberry had 3,000 people population. The towns are 18 miles apart. Thanksgiving Day, there'd be 7,000 or 8,000 people at the football game, no students.
Wow.
Wow.
There are very few students because everybody went home Wednesday night except the football team. And that's not surprising.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, people would eat their Thanksgiving lunch early and come to the game, or eat a sandwich and then have turkey after the game, or have turkey in the parking lot.
Yeah, that's a great tradition. I think it's great. I really like that.
That's pretty crazy. So you basically had the population of both towns plus a few thousand people sprinkled out, I guess, between the two towns somewhere in those 18 miles. So that's a pretty good turnout.
All the moms and dads came, you know, from both teams. That's another 500 people and girlfriends and what have you.
Where did everyone sit? Because you did say early on your stadium holds only 4,000 people. Where did everyone sit?
they would bring in aluminum bleachers from the local high school
Nice,
gosh.
nice.
for the
That's
game, and a
awesome.
lot of people stood. A lot of people stood in the end zone and just watched.
Yeah.
That had to be so much fun.
It was great fun.
I do have a quick question for you about Presbyterian. You mentioned early on at the beginning of the podcast that you know, Chip, you obviously came there. You were a college golf player. Andy played football. So was Presbyterian back in the day known as a sports school? Because, I mean, 25% of your student population were in extracurricular activities. So is it kind of known in the South that if you want to play sports, you go to Presbyterian?
What do you think?
I think Presbyterian has always been a school that prided itself on the quality of the education.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened is a lot of very smart students who also happened to be athletes would come to PC to go to school and just were delighted to have a chance to continue their athletic career. And then you have people like me who I'm just kind of snuck in the back door.
So it sounds like the USC of the South.
A little bit. I mean, on a smaller
Small
scale, right?
Like smarties who want to play.
Yeah.
Like Notre Dame, except a whole lot smaller.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we are very excited you both joined us today. We're about to let you go back to watch the
Thanks,
Masters.
Dan.
Yes.
But I do want to send out a plug real quick, and that is to say, if you like the episode and you like everything we're doing here at Skiptown All-Stars, please follow and subscribe. We really appreciate the support. We will, in the coming weeks, our editor Scott is working on it right now, have for you an Ask a Local, where we got to follow Chip around all day long at PC at Presbyterian College. We got to meet all sorts of staffers, alumni, students, you name it, from all walks of life. And dare I say, when we saw Chip there, he got a little choked up in a few moments. Did you notice?
Absolutely. What's not to get choked up about? He's sharing his history with us. The campus is beautiful. Everyone treated him like a rock star.
They really did.
Yeah. So I was getting choked up.
I know. It was a very cool day to spend all that time with you, Chip. Our love to Kim.
Yes, please tell Kim we say hello. I love the fact that I did not know that you met her at Presbyterian. I love the fact that you guys are still together, and that's where you met.
Yeah. We met in high school, but she moved to Columbia, and even though she didn't go to Presbyterian, she was one of those weekend students.
I'm sensing a little bit of dorm. I'm hearing dorm sneaking in my headphones. Is that what you're hearing?
No,
So
fraternity house.
What was that, Andy?
She would come to the fraternity house, and she and my wife were very close, and so we all four of us had fun.
So they technically met on the grounds of Presbyterian. Okay. But
Right.
we have to do dinner again because you knew Chip for all of maybe 4 days, and he invited us to dinner with him and his beautiful wife Kim, and we had such a lovely dinner that night. So when we get back to Savannah for a visit, we are doing dinner again.
Absolutely.
And Andy, we want to thank you for joining us today. I can't wait to meet you in person. It's going to be a lot of fun when we get to sit down and connect. And you can spill some of the some more of the details on your story.
It's been a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so that's a wrap on that. If you guys are interested, the book's name is The Southern Massacre, 13 Weeks to Remember. The story of the 1979 Presbyterian College Blue Hose football team, written by our friend Chip Porter. It's a Maudlin Press book. They're from Tybee Island. We'll have all the info in the show notes. Highly recommend you pick this up. It's filled with all sorts of paraphernalia, photos, programs, you name it. As he said before, actual plays from the playbook and everything. Can't recommend it enough. It's a great read, especially if you're a sports fan or for the sports fan in your life. And that's it for this week. Thank you so much, guys. Take them out.
Empty nest, full tank.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.